welcome back again. It's David with Ural Motorcycles. This week we're going to be going over battery changes. This was brought up by Wayne and Fergus on Facebook, as well as I think there was a couple people that mentioned it on YouTube as well. So I wanted to make a point of mentioning that there was a few other comments on the last couple videos that I wasn't able to respond to. I'm doing the best that I can, but if it's a situation where you need an immediate response, please feel free to contact us at info@ural.com, and then we can forward it to the appropriate department and get you an answer, or get you hooked up with a dealer, or get you taken care of in some way. So the video this week, I'm going to point out some differences over the years and use physical props to show those differences. I'm not going to be performing the work in every instance. And then at the end, we'll do a battery installation on a 2020. So there's a lot of information to get to as far as changes over the years. So let's get to it. Our first example is this carbureted bike. You can see it's still got the carburetors, the early air cleaner, and it's got the older style starter. And you can tell by its appearance and also the relationship between the starter and the kickstart lever, there's very little room. So this is a good example of the early bikes. And if we remove the side cover, I can point out that in the old days, this plate right here was welded on. Now, that was the case up until, I believe, 2009. 2009 to 2017, they went to this one-piece plate design that was removable. So you had 4 bolts that you could remove, and you would use a 5mm hex key to remove these. I've already loosened them in this case to speed things up. And then on this one, you got the CDI on a bracket right here. You'd also use a 5mm hex key, remove this, take it out of the way, and then you could pretty much either move this out of the way, or you can unplug the relays and take the whole seat base out of the way and access the battery from the top. Now, if you have an earlier bike where the seat base wouldn't be removed, what a lot of people did was they would push the kickstart lever down, and they would secure it with either a zip tie or a bungee cord to the foot peg or the frame and get it out of their way. And then with a 8mm Allen socket and a ratchet, preferably with a swivel on it, you could get up in there and undo the top bolt and remove it and loosen the bottom bolt down here. That would allow you to drop the starter, pull the starter back and drop it down just enough to get the battery out. Now, you'll also notice that the positive is right here by the frame. So this is also why I like to commit the time to just taking the seat off, because you have a lot more access to get this off without potentially touching the frame. If you are removing this with a wrench, you'd want to put a shop rag or something there so you didn't accidentally arc. But with the seat removed, you can actually remove the negative cable first, like you're supposed to do, then disconnect the positive, and you'd want to do that before you messed with lowering the starter if you were going to pull it out from the side. So here's a view from the top. You can see we've removed the seat base completely and unplugged both relays. So next you would want to disconnect the negative battery cable, then the positive battery cable, then with a short stubby Phillips screwdriver and an 8mm socket or wrench, you could undo this retaining bolt, remove the straps, and pull the whole battery out from the top. Installation would be exactly reverse of what I just described. So this example is a first generation EFI bike. This is a 2017 model, but you can see the electrojet fuel injection throttle bodies. It's got the air cleaner that is currently used today. It's got the shorter starter of the from the new supplier, and you can see that there's quite a bit of more room between the starter and the kickstart lever. So on this one, if we remove the side panel, you'll also notice that the fuse box was relocated back here, as well as the diagnostic port. The fuse box used to be up in the steering neck, and then it was moved back here as changes were made for fuel injection, and wiring harnesses were changed and improved. The fuse box got moved back here by the battery. As with the earlier bikes, this version I also just commit to taking off the seat. It takes a few more minutes, but it gets it out of your way, and it saves a lot of headache trying to get your hands up in there and work in a very tight space. So on this bike here, we have the Enduro bench seat, and up front you'd need a 17mm socket. I actually use a deep socket with a ratchet, and you can get up there and get the nut off. And then on the back, you would use a 5mm Allen socket. Again, I would use a swivel on a ratchet with a long extension, and you can actually, if you can get your hand up in here to put your hands, get the socket in the head, you can actually work out here under the fender instead of trying to do it up under the fender where you have no room, and that'll work for both sides. So again, to expedite things, I've already removed the seat. There's the two 8mm bolts that you'd be removing from the back, and the 17mm nylock nut on the front. This would take it completely off the bike. And then on this one, because even though it's a 17, this is a late model 17 where they had already rolled out the two-piece top plate design. So, but again, it's just four 8mm bolts. You would use a 5mm hex key to remove them, and it comes off in two pieces instead of the single piece like the earlier versions. So here again, you have the option of pulling it out from the side or pulling it out from the top. The first generation EFI bikes, I still loaded the battery in from the top. It was just easier for me. But by all means, you could lower the kickstart lever and pull it out from the side. And with the changes in the airbox and the shorter starter, you didn't have to drop the starter like you did on the earlier versions. You could just rotate it to the side and literally pull it out. Okay, here's the view from the top on the 2017. You can see we got a lot more wiring going on. This is associated with the fuse block being back here, plus the EFI, and the changes in the wiring harness that have happened over the years with the switch from carburetor to EFI. So you can see the positive terminal here, the negative terminal here. So to start, 10mm socket and wrench. Break the negative first. And take that off. Get it out of the way. Positive second, I've already removed my little boot. Now I am not risking arcing because the negative side has already been removed. You take this loose, move that out of the way. Okay, now I take my 8mm socket and a little short stubby screwdriver, and I get that in there. This one isn't real tight. Okay. Remove the screw and the nut, your battery straps come off of some little tabs that are down on the frame. So remove your battery straps. Lower the Kickstarter, and because of the new starter that came out in 2015, it gives you more clearance here. You can simply move the battery forward and to the side, and with the kickstart lever down, you can pull this out. Installation is exactly reverse of what I just showed you. And here we have our 2020 example. As you can see, you got the key and throttle bodies. Same airbox as the 2017. We got the new forged kickstart lever, the new starter, which started in 2015. And on this one, again, I would recommend dedicate yourself, give yourself the extra few minutes, remove the seat. You're going to save yourself a bunch of hassle down the road. So back here, there's two 8mm bolts and nuts. I go with a ratchet with a 5mm socket on the top, 13mm wrench up under the fender. You can just reach up under there, take those two nuts and bolts off, remove the side panel, and then with your ratchet, and I like to use a deep 17mm socket, you get up under there and you remove the nylock nut and washer that was holding the front stud on. Now I've already loosened these for time, but you would use your 5mm socket and ratchet again to remove these four 8mm bolts. You remove these top plates. So before we install this thing, quick word on the batteries. So in late 2019, the factory switched from a YTX20L BS battery, where the negative was over here and the positive was over here. So I should actually turn it this way for you. The positive was over here by the frame. The negative was over on this side. So in late 2019, they switched to a YTX20BS, which is a reversed polarity battery. So now the negative is towards the outside and the positive is towards the inside. Now, if you look in here, I hope this is a good angle for you. New fuel injection, second generation. We got the CDI is back here. We got the fuse block here still. Diagnostic port right here. You got a lot of stuff going on here. So wiring harness was changed again for the second generation of fuel injection system. The way I would advise on the newer bikes for the 2020s, I would go in from the side. You've got plenty of clearance against the air cleaner. You got plenty of clearance against the new starter, which is shorter than the old version. All you have to do is hold down the kickstart lever and you can slide it in from the side. But you still want your seat off so you have room to work from the top and get the battery straps on. First, you're going to start with your rubber isolation pad. This lays down on the battery tray in the bottom to help isolate vibration against the battery. And then take your battery, hold the kickstart lever down just a little bit. Even though it doesn't look like it's going to fit, if you hold up this whole bundle of wires, you can actually slide this bad boy in. Now if you straighten it out, slide it back, make sure that your rubber isolator is square underneath the battery, that's not moved to the front or the back, and there you pretty much got it in already. Okay, so you're going to start with the one of the straps. I usually start with the back one. You take the front one. This one's easier. you got more room. And then you have another little rubber isolation. Now that just goes under the two straps. While you're holding the strap, you take your long Phillips screw and the little nylock nut. I like to put the screw from the front to the back with your top strap rubber isolator right there, just under the two straps. Get the little nut started, and that will pretty much hold everything together. Then you take your short, stubby Phillips screwdriver, your 8mm socket, now you don't want to go super tight. When these tabs start bending, stop, that's enough. So you just want to make sure the battery doesn't shake or rattle around. And then you can get your hardware to secure your battery leads. So positive goes on first. Okay. And then your negative lead last. And then you're going to take a little red plastic cap and slide it up over your terminal so nothing arcs. And then you put your two top plates back on, install your seat, put on the battery cover, and you're done. That was a lot of information. Hopefully you got something out of it, regardless of what your Ural you may own. And if you stuck it out this far, I applaud you. So if you're watching on YouTube, give me a thumbs up. If you're watching on Facebook, give us a like if you like the content. And if you have comments for, or suggestions rather, for future videos, please leave them in the comments. And I appreciate you watching. Until next time, take care, go ride your Ural.